Hello everyone, you're watching the programme Capital Ideas Live and I'm its host, Michael Gibson. Moscow has given the world many talented people, writers, poets, scientists, artists and of course, composers. Today in our programme we'll tell you about the best concert venues in the Russian capital. We'll find out how and where young Muscovites learn to play musical instruments, and we will show that music in this city is played everywhere, sometimes even in the most unexpected places. So, here we go. On today's programme, Underground Music, the 5th season anniversary of the project Music in the Metro. The musical history of Moscow embedded in statues and monuments. The museum house of the great Russian composer and native Muscovite Alexander Scriabin. A huge organ, a multifunctional hall, and the best acoustics in the city. We're examining the concert venues in Russia's capital. Today, music can be heard from all corners of Moscow, in concert venues, theatres, on the city streets, and even the underground. On the Moscow Metro, you can not only go quickly and conveniently anywhere in the city, it turns out you can also listen to live music in most of the stations. And the musicians who play there are participants in the city programme Music on the Metro, which was launched several years ago by the Moscow government. And now we, together, are going to go and listen to a live concert. The project, Music in the Metro, is the product of a joint venture between the Moscow Metropolitan and the Department of Transport and Roadway Infrastructure Development for the Moscow government. Since 2022, under the auspices of the Moscow Department of Culture, the Moscow International House of Music has been a partner on the project, involved in artistic selection.
The project Music in the Metro is one of our passengers' favourite projects. Since 2016, it has witnessed 300,000 performances and the number of participants has exceeded 5,000 people. Last December, the 5th season of the Music in the Metro project began and many new musicians and ensembles came to join us.
The musical ensemble Brevis Brass Band has participated in all 5 seasons of the project. Over that time, the group has garnered many fans amongst Metro passengers.
For musicians, playing in the Metro is a terrific opportunity to practice, as musicians are used to it. And basically, while their task is to perform on stage for people who have come, especially for them, for that artist, in the Metro, the first thing is it's really difficult to stop people. Their task is to stop people, to get people to like them. And this is a very tough environment for musicians.
The repertoire for this unusual musical venue is chosen by the group. The underground concert lasts roughly 2 hours.
We make a special point of only playing famous songs, popular melodies from different years, modern, retro, foreign tunes. But for the past few years, we've been trying to play more Russian music, Soviet music. Music they like the most, that resonates with them, that they remember and are familiar with despite their age.
There's normally different people playing here, piano, guitar, but this by far has been the brightest and the most, what's the word? It was loud and exciting and full of so much energy. So I think that's what made us stop. And they were playing such amazing songs, so we just had to stop and dance.
I'm a jazz fan, and so I hear this sound, this live sound that's pulsing in my head. There's a pulse to it, a pulsation. Your legs start to move by themselves alongside them. With these guys, you see? It's really fascinating combination of live sound. I mean, I have to say, there are great acoustics here. Oh, you know, when we went down into the Metro, we heard this pure sound and we began to dance to it then. I mean, we really like to dance. We really love to move, which is why we went towards the sound. We followed the call of our hearts, you might say. We're always advocates for creative works and all for there being more in the Metro.
More than 250 new artists are participating in the 5th season of Music in the Metro. Jazz, blues, hip-hop, country and melodies from the repertoires of classical composers will be playing for underground passengers across 34 venues.
This is our first season, but we're already getting calls and orders thanks to music in the metro, of course, and owing to the fact that people can hear us right in the city, in the center.
On the Music in the Metro website, Muscovites and guests of the Russian capital can find out the specific station and time where their favorite musician will be performing. You can also apply here during the qualifying rounds to participate in the project. The next time you find yourself on the Moscow Metro, plan your route so that you have the chance to listen to some of these wonderful musicians. They are real Moscow virtuosos. So we've just arrived at one of the many Moscow musical schools. And among such educational establishments, this school really stands out. And that's because they teach people here to play percussion instruments. I think we're going to have a very interesting time, and it's going to be very, very loud.
Timofey, let's make it a little more sophisticated and make it more varied on the snare drum.
Timofey Lavrentiev is a student at the Vasilyev Groove School of Drumming. The 6-year-old musician has only been drumming for a year, but is already surprising experts with his phenomenal abilities behind a drum kit.
When he was little, he'd always be drumming on something. First it was the floor, the ceiling, the walls, the table. The boy was drawn to music. And then it just so happened we were walking through this park and heard drumming and followed the sound to this school. And here we are, and we've been practicing here for a whole year.
Timofey attends the music school 3 times a week. Each lesson begins with basic exercises using a metronome. This is a special device that helps drummers to maintain the same beat and not go off track while playing. Despite his young age, Timofey is already performing at various concert venues as a soloist and as part of the children's ensemble at the Vasilyev Groove Drummers Show. In 2012, Vasilyev Groove obtained the title of Best Drum Show in Russia. The ensemble performs solo and with DJs at different events, and is also involved in the programs aired by Russian radio stations and TV channels. The Vasilyev Groove concerts include not only drumming, but also elements of parkour, aerial acrobatics, and choreography.
Here is one of the classes where we have lessons for our students. Group lessons, as you can see. There are lots of electronic drum kits here, and you can have groups of up to 3 or 4 people working with a teacher. The sound of an electronic drum set, it's virtually silent.
Roman, I've never played the drums. Can you teach me?
Yes.
Yes?
I can. The first thing is to pick up the drumsticks.
Great. So what next?
And then you need to sit down at the kit and try to play something.
Great, okay.
The first thing we'll learn is how to hold the drumsticks. Yes, repeat after me. So we're only moving our wrist here.
Oh, with the wrists. I already promised that it would be loud.
Okay, so we have 3 instruments. The hi-hat,
Head,
the snare drum,
snare,
and the bass. So using these 3 instruments, we're going to learn to make a simple rhythm. You need to hit the hi-hat 4 times. Yeah, there you've got it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, on 1 and 3, we need to play the bass at the same time as hitting the hi-hat.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Then on 2 and 4, we're now going to hit the snare drum alongside the hat. Yeah.
So like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. You've learned your first rhythm.
Roman, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was great. You were great.
Great. I really enjoyed that. I would love to continue learning, but we've got to move on. Moscow isn't just the capital of Russia, but also the center of musical life in the country. At different times, great Russian and Soviet musicians and composers have created music here. Many of their life stories have long been part of the history pervading Moscow's streets and alleyways. We're now situated on Strasnoy Boulevard, near the monument to the great Russian composer Sergei Rachmaninoff. On the 1st of April 2023, Muscovite celebrated the 150-year anniversary since his birth. This figure is familiar to all lovers of opera music. This is the monument to the great Russian singer Fyodor Saliepin. The monument is built right next to the house that once belonged to this great artist. And this is the monument to the famous cellist Mstislav Rostropovich. Together with his wife, the opera singer Galina Vishnevskaya, he lived nearby in the famous House of 100 Grand Pianos, where many famous Soviet musicians and composers were housed. I'm now in the center of Moscow on Bolshoi Nikolai Pesovsky Lane. The house behind me is a beautiful 19th century mansion. For more than 100 years, this building has housed the museum dedicated to the great Russian composer Alexander Scriabin. He spent the last days of his life living in this house. The apartment where Scriabin spent the last 3 years of his life is located on the second floor of the mansion. The Memorial Museum opened here a few years after his death. That's why almost all the items that belonged to the composer and were precious to him have remained here unmoved.
The Alexander Scriabin Memorial Museum is the oldest art museum in the city. We are turning 105 years old this year. And as the major domo of Scriabin's last refuge on this earth, it is a great honor to be the manager of this house, because Scriabin was a great composer, known across all continents, whose music nowadays is performed everywhere.
The largest room in the house is the composer's study. Here you can see the musician's beloved grand piano.
This is a 1911 Bechstein, the very instrument that Scriabin used to create his final pieces. And after the death of Scriabin, the keys of this piano have been touched by virtually all the greatest world pianists, such as Rachmaninoff, Safranitsky, Horowitz, Richter, Gilels, Van Cliburn. Our contemporaries are great in number.
Alexander Scriabin is not only famous for being an innovative composer, but also for being the first musician in the world to start performing works using dynamic colored lighting. That's why he is often referred to as the father of Russian light music. The composer wrote his first light musical poem, Prometheus, in 1910. That being said, he only managed to give concerts accompanied by light at his home.
Guests gathered. Curtains were drawn, the lights were turned off. Scriabin played Prometheus on the grand piano, and either his wife or one of his friends played in complete darkness on this illuminated keyboard, which, for those times, was modern, of course.
Yes.
They even showed here how Scriabin perceived music. It's known as synesthesia, i.e. the ability to perceive music in color. When each note, say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on, corresponds to a certain shade of color.
Alexander Scriabin lived a short but vibrant life, leaving behind a great legacy not only as a composer and performer, but also as a true patriot of his city.
Scriabin loved his native city of Moscow very much. We have this concept of a small motherland. A small motherland is a part of Great Russia. Scriabin was born in Moscow. He was baptized here. He studied, married, worked, and even found his final resting place at the Novodevichy Cemetery in Moscow. And wherever he was, he always sought to return to Moscow. He wrote that he worked best of all here. And as a native Muscovite, I can also say it's very pleasant to hear that.
Scriabin House is more than a mere museum. Lectures, masterclasses, festivals, and even scientific research all take place here. For instance, in early June 2023, there was a performance here by winners of the China-Russia Friendship Cup, an international competition of performing musicians held with the support of the Euro-Asian People's Assembly.
This contest, which is now over, is our 5th outing, an anniversary, and we hope that this contest will once again next year be held in China. And keeping with a tradition that has been forming in our country for more than a year, we are hosting a concert of laureates in this miraculous, wonderful, grand hall of the Scriabin Museum, and our participants are very pleased.
Today, the music of Scriabin and other great Russian composers can be heard on the best stages of Moscow. For example, in the Tchaikovsky Concert Hall, you can hear familiar pieces performed by the Mariinsky Theatre Orchestra under the baton of the renowned conductor, Valery Gergiev.
The Mariinsky Theatre is popular here in Moscow, and we often perform with singers, we perform with instrumentalists, pianists, violinists, and composers. I have performed many times here with Rodion Shchedrin's music festivals. We have performed here with the works of great Russian composers. Very often. Moscow is a major cultural center.
5 years ago, another unique object appeared on the Moscow music map. The Zaryadka Concert Hall opened right in the heart of the Russian capital, next to Red Square. The schedule for this hall is prepared months in advance. Famous musicians from all over the world perform here, and festivals and lectures are also held here. The Zaryadka Concert Hall was designed and built in just 3 years. Today, it's a high-tech, multifunctional concert complex with 2 stages. Mariana Pizzolato, a mezzo-soprano from Sicily, renowned for playing parts in the operas of Rossini, has already visited Moscow several times. She has performed at the Tchaikovsky Concert Hall, at the Bolshoi Theatre, and of course, on stage at the Zaryadka Concert Hall.
I have to say that it's amazing, and the most amazing thing is the acoustic. It's perfect acoustic for singers. This all make singers happy, actually.
Zaryadka's main hall is designed to seat 1,560 people. The hall not only houses a unique set of acoustics, which is also created thanks to special panels covering the walls. The hall itself is incredibly versatile. In 40 minutes, the stage and stalls can be turned into a completely flat space. Another concert venue in the capital is the Moscow International House of Music, without which it would be impossible to imagine the city's cultural life. In 2022, it celebrated its 20th anniversary. This is a special place not only for musicians. Concerts, performances, creative evenings, celebratory shows, and festivals are all held here. This multifunctional cultural center is considered to be one of the largest philharmonic complexes both in Russia and all over the world. So to get into the building of the International House of Music, you've got to go up this wide staircase. And here there is a monument to the famous Soviet composer and pianist Dmitri Shostakovich. This 10-story building houses 4 concert halls: the Svetlanovsky, the Chamber Hall, the Schnittke Hall, and Theatre Hall. Each of them has its own separate entrance, allowing for several concerts to be held simultaneously.
So let's say Joe Bonamassa was playing here, making a lot of noise, while at the same time a pianist could be playing a concert downstairs and you wouldn't hear a single stroke.
And that's underneath.
In other words, it's completely soundproof here. It's directly below it.
The Svetlanovsky is the largest and, I'd say, the most beautiful hall in the House of Music. It can accommodate 1,716 people. Its stage is decorated with the king of musical instruments, a huge organ.
Designers say they constructed it in a way that would make romantic music sound better. Now, what is romantic music? It's the 19th century. It's what came after Bach. In other words, it's not the music performed in cathedrals, but powerful, romantic concert organ music. It sounds simply staggering, more powerful than an orchestra.
In the Svetlanovsky Hall, symphonic works, jazz, or rock hits all equally sound as good when performed. The secret to such versatility lies not only in the venue's high-quality sound system, but also in the materials used in its construction. The hall is lined with Siberian larch. Experts say this is one of the best acoustic trees in the world. It's ideal for emphasizing and reflecting sound.
A good tree is like a good wine. It only gets better over years. That is, it dries up, it acquires the necessary density to correctly reflect sound, to correctly bounce it across the hall. It also picks up, as strange as it may sound, it picks up the resonances of the music that is played in the hall, and depending on this factor, its structure changes and adapts to what is occurring in the hall.
The Schnittke Hall is the youngest in the House of Music. It was opened 2 years ago. This transforming hall is used for rehearsals, professional recordings, and broadcasting concerts. Sound engineer Maxim Olachov, together with his team, ensure that both the artists and the audience are satisfied with the sound.
This is my workplace. Here we have a mixing console, the most important tool for a sound engineer. It receives all the signals from the stage, every microphone, every device, everything comes here. Here we adjust the timbers, we set the balance, and we do everything possible to make our listener feel comfortable while listening to a concert.
A concert will start here in a few hours. The musicians are already practicing on stage. Let's go take a look. Today, saxophones are playing on stage in the Chamber Hall at the Moscow International House of Music. The youth ensemble Nova will perform a Baroque chorale and classical works of symphonic music.
For us, this stage is very important because on this stage we made our debut. We played a series of New Year's concerts. This is a unique hall, one of the best not just in Moscow, but also in Russia. With its special acoustics, it helps you to play, to stick together at the same tempo, with the same sounds. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, for sure.
Over the 20 years of its existence, the Moscow International House of Music has become one of the favorite venues for both Muscovites and guests to the capital who appreciate high-quality performances and good acoustics.
I think we will have a great evening because the audience is a really pleasant bunch. The hall is good. It's always warm here, you know, it's full of soul. I'm playing an instrument with my instructor Alexander, who is performing here today. We don't listen to the instructor very often. He always has these really interesting compositions that he chooses. It's fascinating to listen to them.
There is still so much more we can say about musical Moscow, But why use words when in the hall we can hear such beautiful music? You've been watching the program Capital Ideas Live. I'm Mike Gibson. See you next time. Bye.